Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. We are back after a couple of weeks. My name is Don Irvine, I'm your host, and joined by my co-host, as always, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, and he resurrected dog-faced pony soldiers.
Yeah, he
did. He did.
I admit, I had to go back over that and said, did he really do that?
He did. He did it again. All right. So before we get started, tell us about Spencer. What's up with him? What's going to happen?
Sure. All right. So some of you may know my son Spencer. He has done a lot of work for Accuracy in Media and Accuracy in Academia over the years. He works for another organization's America. Oh, I always botch this. It's affiliated with the Koch network, so it's Americans for Fair Treatment, I think, is the official name of the organization. Anyway, and they do things on public sector unions. So anyway, so he's 35 years old and was just recently diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Been a devastating time for the family. He lives out in the Phoenix, Arizona area. The upside to this, if there is any upside, the good news is that he's officially been accepted into the Mayo Clinic out there. So for treatment, so when they start his treatment, it'll be done under the auspices of the Mayo Clinic. He did tell me the only other things too is that Arizona is a right to try state. So this is a term that I was not really familiar with before, but this allows they can do clinical trials and a lot of other things without government interference, in essence, which is not readily available necessarily in a lot of other states. So that's good. I still don't know exactly what the real game plan is for his treatment. Obviously, it's not going to be an easy path. He is experiencing some of the effects of the cancer, and this cancer is bad. It's very bad news on the one front, but he has been supported by a lot of people through their prayers and their thoughts, and we appreciate that. And so he's got a pretty good attitude about this. So my wife is actually doing a Brian McNichol type road trip. She left at 3:50 this morning with her car, and she is driving to Arizona. And actually, because I can track her, I think she kind of knows I can track her. She is now between Columbus and Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So my wife is she's a beast of a road warrior. I cannot do this. I would have headed back with her one way or the other, or would have flown back, but I've got some doctor appointments I need to take care of. So unfortunately, I've got some old man issues potentially. So it's like, Spencer and I are now commiserating with medical things, and who knows what the heck where I'm going with this. I thought I was pretty fit, and then the doctor says, maybe not.
So we got to get you right too.
That's right. So I got to get squared away too. So anyway, so she's out there. I don't know. She doesn't have any plans in terms of where she's stopping. I have a feeling that at some point in time she will call me and say, find me a hotel or whatever, and wherever she's going to be. And she's going to push through as much as possible. She can drive a ridiculously long amount of time. And I just, after all, even those 700-mile road trips to see my daughter, I threw in the towel. I said, I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
So I'd rather just fly. I'd rather do a fly drive. We've done, fly to Louisville, drive the last couple hours. That I can handle.
Yeah.
I just this 10, 12 hours in the car thing is just like, not anymore. I'm too old. I'm moving on. You're a veteran road warrior, but I just can't do this.
Yeah, it gets old too, and now I got Marty driving, so it's a little bit.
That's
better.
True, yeah.
So I just want to say that, we've talked about, if you watch this show for any period of time, Don is Latter-day Saints and I'm Catholic, and we're both very much people of faith, and urge all of our families and friends who watch to pray for Spencer, who is really one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah, and just spread the word. Anything will help. People like us. All we really can do is give him give him support as much as we can. Obviously, as his father, and want to be there as much as possible. And his mom is to me a lot more useful in a lot of ways because she can actually cook. So she has the advantage, and and he'll need kind of a special diet because he just can't eat everything with cancer in his body. But he's a good kid, and we're hoping and praying that the medical team can work a few miracles. I've learned more about pancreatic cancer than I've ever wanted to, and cancer in general. And there's actually quite a good pancreatic cancer support group on Facebook. It's been pretty amazing for the couple weeks I've been on it in terms of the stories. And one thing you learn about cancer is that you may have you can have lung cancer and all the different kinds of cancer, but cancer affects everybody differently. The mutation is different. So they have, everybody's treatment plan is tailored to them and based on what the scans show, what the biopsies have, and everything like that. And there are people who live for many years actually with stage 4. So we have a lot of hope here that Spencer's youthful age, being very unusual to have it at this age, extremely rare, that this is his way of getting through this battle. Does cancer suck? Yeah, it does. But maybe I'm being taught a lesson on having more empathy for people who have cancer and some other things. I don't know, but we'll get through this one way or the other. Appreciate Brian and your friends and your family support, and we'll do the best we can, and updates will be given as we get them.
All right, pass it along to.
All right, so back to the news.
One thing I want to say. You said right to try. I just want to say, so that is drugs and treatments that have not been approved by the FDA. In states with right to try laws, they let you say, hey, this might help me. They let you try it. That's what that means. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it doesn't necessarily have to go off to Mexico or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Right. Which is nice. So I mean, the other thing about this is just that until we hit this this bump in the road as such, that had no idea about the healthcare system really in Arizona and Phoenix area. It's quite good. If Spencer didn't get into Mayo, he had also applied to MD Anderson Cancer Center. So there you are in Phoenix, and they have a Mayo Clinic and an MD Anderson Cancer Center, which also probably speaks to the way the population has been for a long time in Arizona.
Right.
But there's some excellent treatment centers for cancer patients in Arizona, and we are very, very grateful for that. So we are, we think he's in Arizona for a reason at this point, and he's going to get really excellent care as a result. All right, as I said, back to the news. So actually, one thing I didn't put on here, but I wanted to get your feelings about this, is just this whole Canada, India thing with Trudeau accusing India of I guess assassinating. Is that what they were going to call it? The Sikh activists. I mean, I don't know. When I first saw this, I'm like, what the heck is all this about?
Well, there is, first of all, the thing I want to say is, when I was in school, right, we were taught that the French colonies, terrible. The French did a terrible job of colonizing, left those places in terrible shape, right? French bad, English good, right? But I mean, if you look at what's going on now, English bad, right? That wasn't good for anyone. Right, the countries that were English colonies, that were British Crown colonies, where does freedom stand in Canada, in India, in New Zealand, in Australia? These are the answer is not Hong Kong. Obviously, the answer is not good. Right, they're extrajudicial killings out of the country. The way that Trudeau treated the trucker strike and so forth. The New Zealand, she's back, wanting to confiscate everybody's guns and turn off all the coal plants and just turn them off today and we'll make do on figuring out the energy problem later. And so, the fact that they're like going on each other's, into each other's country and killing people is not really surprising when you look at like the big picture of those colonies.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, we're seeing some of the diplomatic stuff. I guess they're expelling, people out of the
Yeah.
country, the ambassadors and whatever, and all this stuff. But I mean, as far as you have read, I mean, is there anything that even remotely backs up what Trudeau is saying at this point?
Well, I mean, I don't know what intelligence they have. This is all pretty new, so we don't really know what they were. It's not new to Canada. Obviously, they've been working on this, but it's new to us. I don't, you never know. And like Bob said, probably not, given it's Trudeau, but you don't really know. And right at the end of G20, they were in the same place and so forth. So,
I don't know. I mean, I just say it just seems kind of strange. I mean, a good point you make too there. I mean, we have two former British colonies in essence, fighting against each other, making this accusation. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of anything recently. I mean, I think of somebody, assassinating someone else. I find it to be something that happens in other countries, but it wasn't something that I really thought that India was really behind a lot of these things in the past. But, not that I paid a ton of attention, but the headlines usually are in other countries, not India.
Right. And the other thing is like, they've never really known what to do with the Sikhs, right?
Yeah.
The Sikhs are basically what I can tell, a peaceful religion. They're their own thing. They're the people who don't cut their hair, don't shave. So the men, you will see with the stuff where their hair is tied up under the headwear. There's a name for it. It's not escaping me. But they've never been able to like get along with the Sikh minority in India. They've always been, the government has always been hostile to them. And this is not the first thing that's happened against the Sikhs in India by any means.
Yeah, I just looked that up. So they said it's a turban called pagri.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Actually, if you hadn't mentioned it, I never would have looked it up because I never knew it. So there we go. I have now learned a new word and something for that.
There you go.
Yeah,
People say you don't learn from TV, you learn from
should be learning it from the internet, right? Because Google and everybody knows everything. So right. I mean, I've met Sikhs in the past. I mean, this is one of those things too where you have different ethnicities, other things that are going on within these other countries, and India is obviously huge, and I think this does, a lot of these countries, they do have a hard time trying to kind of figure out what do we do with this sect or this or that, and it does sometimes bubble up and cause other problems. Well, I guess we'll have to wait for more news to learn more about what the heck is going on there. Other news is this whole Iranian, hostage swap thing where, we get some of our people back and they get $6 billion of frozen assets that can only be used for humanitarian causes.
Yeah.
Come on. Who's buying this?
Where's our check on that? How do we enforce that? So I will say this, okay, someone raised the point on the internet about this. It was the exact thing I was thinking. So I'm like, you can say what you want about this. And obviously, we paid a ransom, which encourages further hostage taking. All these things are fraught. But if that was my brother, uncle, son, father over there, I would say yes. It was $6 billion that was theirs. That was invested in U.S. assets that we froze the assets. So we're giving them their money back, right? We're not really, getting anything out of our treasury and sending it over. But, the fact is, there's a reason that we impounded that money, and Iran's done nothing to address that. Iran's done nothing to earn, any kind of special privileges from us, but we did get some people back. So, again, if I was those people's families, I'd be extremely happy, and I wouldn't be worried about, the propriety of the $6 billion. If I was a diplomat or someone else living abroad doing business in Iran, perhaps, I'd be worried because, the job of hostage there is now unfilled. and so they're not going to let that job be unfilled for long. They'll find someone else.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I guess, the human side of this is just that kind of like what you're talking about is that, we have Americans there. They do have, most of the times with hostages, they have family back here in the United States. And, how do you tell the family, we can't or won't do anything. We're not going to cave into these people and give them money or whatever meet their demands when you're talking about these individuals. I mean, and you can imagine the conditions that these people have lived under. And the
Right.
longer it goes on, the worse it gets. A lot of times health deteriorates. A lot of these things, is bad, and Bob is saying here, I mean,
Right. That's right.
this,
You
this,
can say what you want, but this is true.
yeah. Yeah, so it's difficult. I mean, I definitely would not want to be in a position of having to try to figure that out. But
Right.
it does, every one of these things. It's just kind of like the whole thing where we get here in the United States, where schools get hacked and businesses get hacked, and you have the ransomware and got to pay up and all this cryptocurrency and stuff like that. Is that every time you pay up for that, it's only going to spur others to do more. Now,
Right.
in the case of records and personal information being stolen, it's not quite the same as these human individuals, right? But it still fosters more of this, as Bob says, it begets more, and so so that's not the pattern that we want to set either. So I mean, I find it to be very difficult. Your point is well taken on the fact that this technically was their money. We froze it.
Well, yes and no, right?
Yeah, but also, how do you check exactly? I mean, it's being sold to everybody as humanitarian purposes only, and exactly where's the checks and balances on that? Who is going to make that determination and make sure that only happens? And and what happens if there's a violation? Does that mean we're going to refreeze the assets? And what will then Iran's countermeasures be? I don't know. I
Right.
just this is the stuff that it's somebody else that's at a higher pay grade has got to figure out for me.
Yeah, it's also a thing. It's something a rookie foreign policy shop would do, right?
Yeah.
A seasoned for one thing, they would say, okay, we'll give you $3 billion, and the other $3 billion contingent on good behavior, right?
Yeah.
So you don't take any more hostages for 3 years. We'll start letting those other billions out, right? And they just chunked it all over the fence the first day, and it's hostages is sort of a kindergarten level way of handling this, and that's what they did.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we'll give you these people back, give us all our money back, and they're like, yeah, sure, okay, fine, sign here. Rather it does seem to be this, like, there really wasn't any real negotiation. When you kind of look at it from our viewpoint, it's like they're giving them back everything.
Right, they gave them everything, and
I like your idea though. Give them give them half, and then they can have the rest over time, as long as give them $3 billion and say for humanitarian purposes, and when it comes in that we do that and all that. Hold on. Hello.
Sorry, is your live stream now?
Yeah.
Sorry about interrupting.
Well, you're on the air, kind of.
Good news. I'm in Mayo.
All right, good. We will spread the news. We actually spent a few minutes just talking about you and wishing you well, so we will add that in. All righty, love you. Bye bye. All right, that's what we call breaking news. It was Spencer, so I had to answer the phone.
Right.
Sorry, folks. So Spencer just called that he has his first appointment with Mayo tomorrow.
Oh, good. All right.
So he was
Great
excited,
progress.
and we're excited for him as well. And I told him that we had, as you heard, we spent some time talking about him. He gets excited. He knows when we're kind of on the air, but he's excited about it, and so are we. So anyway.
Yeah, I am too.
So
let us know how it goes.
Yeah. Well, look, we do what we have to do.
That's right.
All right. So yeah, so there's a lot there. I mean, I like I said, I do like your idea that, if we had been able to have some kind of checks and balances, if the $3 billion have been used for what we consider to be humanitarian purposes, they are on good behavior. They're not doing anything crazy. You start releasing more money, and that would be fine. But giving them the entire thing right away, not rookie shop. Yeah, this is yet par for the course for the Biden administration.
Right. That's a really bad foreign policy team they have. They're really not good.
And appreciate that.
Bob.
Appreciate that, Bob. We appreciate you and your prayers as well to our family. Always good. So, well, I'm going to throw this in because I just saw this before we came on the show. So Biden has now announced the American Climate Corps.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
Yeah. It's even more ridiculous.
I know. This administration is amazing because they just keep throwing these things out there. I mean, how much further left can we go? Is this, they're looking at the clock and they're saying 2024, we have until January 2025, and then we lose pretty much control of everything. They're not seeing much hope for them to stay the Democrats stay in office and
right.
Biden stay in office. And so therefore executive orders, all kinds of things are being thrown out there. We had that, the 50-year drilling ban, that he announced the other day. I mean, this is like, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink out there. I'm going to do everything I can, no matter how ridiculous and stupid it is, because we've got to do something, and I'm not going to be here come January 2025.
Right. I think that that's one thing I was going to say is I think that they have determined they're not going to win. Right. I think that the numbers are, Trump is ascending. He's going to be the nominee. These cases against him are not looking good right now. There's problems with all four of them. He's quite likely to emerge victorious, and so they're kind of like doing their thing. Like if you take a job in this, because you can see Trump disbanding this on day one, right? He's not going to put up with a climate conservation corps or whatever. He's not going to put up with this thing that they're trying to do. They've come up with an excuse to bring John Brennan and Jim Clapper back into government. He wants to hire them for some kind of intelligence, a commission or whatever. It's like, no, those guys lied, right? They lied to get you into office. I can understand your fealty to them, Mr. Biden, but the rest of us are like, these are proven, found liars. And it's not just that they lied, it's that they turned on their that's right. That's true too. They've turned on this, right? This is getting out of line for them. So,
yeah, I mean, it just seems that they're speeding things up too. It's like, we're getting these. Yeah, really.
That's right.
It really is. But I mean, how much? I don't know. I mean, how much is this thing going to cost? Is there a cost estimate on this climate core, or is it just announced and we'll get to that later? But it just seems like this is yet another thing that we don't need to be spending any more money. Our debt is now at $33 trillion. Hello, your Inflation Reduction Act has not helped the economy. Bidenomics has not helped the economy, but you're just throwing more fire on this thing. It's just like, this is out of control. And come November of 2024, if you think this is really going to help you, this definitely isn't going to help you.
The other thing is that, like, we need to be keeping track of on this. So what was the debt when Biden took office? It was about 26 million, right?
Trillion,
right. 26 trillion. So we've added 7 trillion. So Trump added 7.2 trillion, and he had to pay he'd done all 4 years, and he had to pay for COVID, right? Enormous expenses to develop the vax and hand it out and build all this infrastructure and PPP and all this stuff, right? Biden, those costs came off on Biden. Biden has spent almost as much, and he will soon pass Trump in how much he's added to the debt, right? And the crisis went away under him. So it's much more spending, right? It's much more out of hand than it was when he started.
Yeah, and I'm no, and I've been critical of Trump's spending because he didn't seem to care much. I mean, and you're right though. I mean, there was, you know, his figures were inflated by those extra costs of COVID. Biden came into office, he didn't have to do that, but he larded on that Inflation Reduction Act, which was completely unnecessary, and just continued to drive our debt higher, and yet he's they keep playing these word games about, well, inflation is cooling, so we're going to be, and Bidenomics is working because we've been able to do all
He's
this.
brought inflation down. Like, yeah, he brought it up.
He's bringing it down after having sent it skyrocketing to 40-year highs.
Yeah.
So that's what the truth is, and they're not out of the woods. I mean, we've got there's things that economists call prices where they're sticky, and we have, thanks to inflation under Biden, we've reached a new level of where prices are. So the best case scenario is that as they rose to a certain level, they come down, but they come down to a level that is markedly higher than it was
Right.
when Trump left office. But that now becomes your new baseline.
Right. So it's like 22% higher at the grocery store now than it was when Trump left office.
Right. And then they try to use that baseline as as saying, like, look, we've got it. So if a price of something drops below that new baseline, they're like, look, we've got it. We're doing a good job because it's dropping below. It's like, I want to know what that price was, when Trump left office. That's a more accurate reading than what your fake figures. They're playing so many games with the numbers and everything like this.
Right. And they're ignoring the fundamentals. Like what's the driver of all this inflation, right? It's energy policy. The day one, they said, no more Keystone Pipeline. We're back in global warming. We're back conserving and knocking out coal plants, and we're going to, try to shut down the pipelines. And also he said right out front, right at the first. So the rest of the world said, okay, America's going from, seeing how much energy it can produce to seeing how little it produce again. And so they responded accordingly. Now the Russians and the Saudis have teamed up to reduce production voluntarily. They could produce more, but they don't want to because they want to drive up prices. Okay, because it squeezes us, it doesn't hurt them. So that's the kind of thing when you signal energy scarcity. You take a huge geopolitical asset that's in your favor and you turn it against you. And he did that on day one. And the prices of energy started marching up that day. And, it's what double it was when, or almost double what it was when Trump left office, right? It's still like it's 80% higher than it was when Trump took office. Now, how does that happen? What do they do? Who eats that expense? We do, right? The companies, our fuel price is double, but we're not going to raise prices. No, they're not going to do that. That's not the way it works. That's like, I see you haven't heard the UAW strike. Okay. So their big thing is, the CEO got a 40% raise, so we should get a 40% raise. That's like, that's not the way it works, right? We can find more people to snap part A into part B than we can find who can balance the books in a multinational corporation in a mature industry, right? Those people are not growing on trees. People who can snap part A into part B are growing on trees. So, that's the problem there. And that, what they're asking for, the Ford came straight out and said that'll bankrupt our company. So, you will remember, me and you are old enough to remember when Detroit was one of the great, vibrant cities in the country. You had all these people making these great wages from the UAW and everything. And they kept demanding more and more and more until those companies couldn't handle it and went out of business or, had to drastically change how they did business, which basically ceded control of the auto market to foreign sectors.
Yeah. I mean, foreign car makers have made tremendous inroads. I mean, when I was younger, you saw very few foreign models of any kind. I mean, I remember, as a teenager, the car I saw the most of from somewhere else would have been Mercedes-Benz, and that was a status symbol. I don't recall really seeing any BMWs. and very few any other Japanese, or anything else coming in there. Now we're dominated really by Japanese car makers, Korean car makers,
Yeah.
some of the German car makers, and they make, in general, better cars. Detroit, our automakers, lost some of their edge. They stopped being creative and inventive. The unions have tremendous power with this. Their union leader now, Sean Fain. I mean, he's decided they didn't just target one automaker; they went after all three automakers. They've got just under 14,000 people on strike, and he says if they don't get an agreement, I guess by Friday noon, they're going to have more locals go out on strike and cause even more problems. But the ripple effect of this, though, I mean, this is for the unions. It's just that okay, so you put your people out of work, so that's one problem. But then as you do this, you start as you hinder Detroit. Detroit, the automakers are fighting, with these other automakers, the EV part of it, the Teslas of the world and things like that, as well as their own EV, projections and things like that. They're dealing with lots of other issues. And, if they can't make cars for people to buy, other people will make cars for them to buy, and they will lose even more market share, which has already been dwindling. They're shooting themselves in the foot, and this idea, that they wanted a 40% raise as their starting point. And I guess Stellantis, has offered 21%, and they're like, no, not good enough. They've been going after the CEOs for years and their big paychecks, but they have to kind of look at too, the CEO pay in corporations is built of some cash and mostly stock options, exercised and awarded, and that makes up a tremendous amount of their pay. There's no guarantee that those options, will wind up being in the money for them if things go wrong. Now, being on strike, that'll hurt the CEO potentially in the long run if it devalues the stock options in essence, because like they could wind up underwater and never be able to cash them in. But those are the risks that the CEOs take. But the unions is like, hey, look, what's happening with the EVs? Okay, so these automakers, are trying to go into the EVs to compete with the Teslas of the world. Well, the unions are going. What they're doing is that when they're building EVs, they're going to a lot of non-union states, right?
Right. Well, because you have to have work rules. They have a big problem here because, yeah, that's right. They keep falling farther behind. Electric cars, right? You're talking about, there's a speedometer and a radio and a heater and an air conditioner and a battery, and that's about it, right? There's not much to those cars. It's all battery, right? All the things that we have, radiators and, things we're managing the amount of heat in the car. We're managing, cooling systems. We're managing braking systems and all that. All this is computer controlled, and it's done. The big part is the battery, right? There's no piston. You're not changing pistons. You're changing the battery, or the battery's good or it's not good, right? So, when you start, you fully convert to making only electric cars in a plant, you don't need nearly as many people. I mean, it's probably half. The other thing to remember about this is, Musk pays the Tesla people, the total compensation cost is about $46 an hour. What Sean Fain is proposing would be more than $70 an hour. Right. And you're like, so how are these guys going to compete when every employee hour costs them $24 more than their competitors, or if it's almost 50% more, right? It's a little more than 50% more, but that, you can't compete like that. That's a non-starter. So, they say they turn their nose up at 21, but 21's a pretty good number. Most people in America would, especially in the Joe Biden's America, when wages have gone down, earning power has gone down. People are making do with about $8,000 less per year per household. Then 21% raise sounds real good to the rest of the country. The other thing is, the last time we went through this, it was traumatic for the country, right? We had these big three automakers, and we had all learned to revere them, and we studied their new models, and You know, like every guys my age can tell you the difference between a 68 Camaro and a 69 Camaro and a 70 Camaro. And same thing with the Mustangs, right? You know, we knew all that stuff. It was all logged in your little brain, right? Because we watched these big companies very carefully. But these guys have the risk of if they go out on strike, it'll be like the Hollywood strike. You know, what's going on with the Hollywood strike? No, who knows? You know why? Because nobody cares that Hollywood's on strike. No one, I don't hear anyone talk about that. They can stay on strike forever, right? There's a lot of, you know, I got 300 channels on my TV, right? 400 channels, and maybe be more now. You know, I could not care less, you know, if these particular set of writers don't like what they get paid, right? And so, and now we're in a position like that in the car. Like you said, like we were talking about earlier, you know, I don't drive an American car. You don't drive an American car. You know, so what? They go broke. You know, the whole northern tier of the country will hurt for it. Rust Belt will hurt for it, right? Because there's a lot of, you know, it's not just cars; it's all the ancillary suppliers and so forth. But no one's waiting on them to deliver the next car. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah, you mentioned about car ownership with you and myself. I'm thinking just now, it's like, okay, so my sister-in-law in Arizona, she has a Genesis, which is Kia, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then her husband has a 4Runner, a 1999 4Runner. My brother-in-law in Utah he's got the Honda Odyssey. He's got another Japanese old minivan. He bought a used luxury Lexus car. And I think any other car, I think the other cars were all Japanese cars. So it's like, you know, and then Spencer, I mean, he's got, you know, a Camry and a Civic. I mean, this, you know, it goes through there. It's not, you know, for me, it's not like I have anything against American cars per se. I grew up with American cars, right? My father even had a Corvair of all things, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Unsafe at any speed.
Yeah, the Ralph Nader car.
That's your neighbor too, isn't he?
Yeah.
Ralph, he lives
I thought it was a fun little car, but what did I know when I was 7 years old? But, you know, I mean, we had that. We had like a Pontiac Le Mans, and you know, we had some Oldsmobiles and a Ford Taurus and all of these things. So all I knew were American cars. What I did know about the American cars was, particularly as I got older, is that we, you know, even when we first got married, I had a Ford. Oh man, what was it? It was just a 4-door car sedan. I can't remember the name of the car anymore. They don't make it. And then we bought a Taurus wagon later on. But I know that both those cars, you know, had a fairly high maintenance cost to repair.
Oh yeah.
Ever since we bought all these Japanese cars, you know, it has been basic maintenance. You know, it's tires, brakes, oil, those kinds of things, the routine kind of things that,
right,
you know, you have to do because of wear and tear in the car. It's not the major overhaul. Like, oh, I got to do this. Like, you know, I've had tie rod ends and all kinds of stuff, you know, costing all kinds of money, all kinds of engine issues with these other cars. You know, these cars have been wonderful. So,
right.
and
the
they're
fleet of cars in America right now is the oldest it's ever been. The average car on the road in the U.S. right now is 12 years old. Think about that. We don't need these guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they want to play hardball. They'll be playing by themselves.
Well, one of the reasons my wife drove her 2015 Lexus, you know, 350 out there, her SUV out there. And so we buy all our cars secondhand. And so, we don't run up a lot of mileage. This trip alone will put on half the mileage she normally will drive in a year when she goes back and forth eventually. And so, but it's a comfortable car. Everything works very well and all that kind of stuff. The reason is that Spencer's second car, which is one of the cars we gave him, you know, is a 2006 Honda Civic, which has got a few issues. Like the driver window doesn't come down, for which I had forgotten. And I went to, when we were in Arizona, and I drove up to a drive-through, and I had to open the car door to get the drive-through bag, right? Also, the air conditioning in that car, you know, it's a small car, 4-cylinder car, and that may have a lot to do with the engine, you know, with the whole thing. But the air conditioning never got cold. It may have gotten cool from time to time, but then it would go lukewarm. And when you're in 100 to 110 degree temperatures, that is not
Yeah,
satisfactory.
lukewarm does not feed the
No, that
piltdown.
doesn't cut it. You know, look, there's nothing worse, and because I experienced that when I was driving that car one day, as I was actually sweating in the car. But I can't roll down the window anyway because it's still warmer outside.
That's
I'm a
right.
little bit cooler inside, but not by much, you
Yeah.
know. But once again, that car is 17 years old. It still
Right.
runs very well. All right.
Right.
So, you know, and I think, you know, Spencer may sell it to his sister-in-law or brother-in-law, and that's fine. But you know, but that car's going to roll on, you know, for years. It's got 135,000 miles on it. That's great. It's still that 17-year-old car, 135,000 miles on it. That's low mileage,
Yeah.
right?
Mine's
So you know,
275, 280, somewhere in there.
yes, I mean, this is so it's very different, and these auto workers have got to think is like, you know, what are you doing here exactly? You know, you're following this leader, but you know, he's going to lead you right to your own destruction and doom
Yeah.
in the end.
He's read a lot of his own press clips. He seems impressed with himself and his ability to do this, but you know, what he's asking for is ridiculous and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, no, and you know, and you know, the competition, as Bob pointed out, and okay, here's what Bob owns, right?
Yeah.
So this is what's happening. You can go to more and more households, and you don't see that many American cars. I mean, maybe I should do a survey the next time I walk around my neighborhood, but I'm betting that I'm going to find, you know, I've seen a Mustang, and, you know, but I can't remember how many American cars. I've seen very few American cars in the driveways of our neighborhood. So it's just really hard. Um,
Yeah, that's right. Look at this.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's right. That's how you do it. Happy birthday, John. John just turned 60 in the last week or
You
so.
just turned 60. Happy birthday. Yeah.
You can start getting into high school football games for free.
You know, when I had my birthday, you know, my thing was people say happy birthday. I says, yeah, I got one more year to Medicare. Not that I'm too excited about the government taking care of part of me like that already. The 1 year to Medicare is like, it's actually kind of scary.
One of my cousins told me, like, get whatever you got to get done. Like, I need to get my knee done at some point. She's like, get it done before you go on Medicare because it's much easier to deal with your insurance than it is to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, look, the thing is that we know about, you know, Medicare, as we go off on this tangent too, is just that, you know, it's only going to cover a certain amount of things, right? So you better have a second policy in place to cover, you know, other things there. You know, that's what my father had when he passed, you know, and my mother used his Blue Cross policy, you know, which was a godsend, and, you know, and helped her so that between Medicare and that policy, you know, she was pretty well covered. So I'll be, you know, my wife will turn 65 before I will. She'll be hitting that. So she'll have that in you know, in January. So I'll be very curious to how things go there. We'll really personally experience this with anything that we're going through, and, you know, what the cost will be really in the end for that. Because I'm kind of like, I'm going to have to pay Medicare a premium. What happens to my, you know, my premium with my insurance company? How much will that go down? A little bit, or will that go down something equivalent? I have a feeling that my healthcare costs are going to go up, nevertheless, as a result of that. You know. So, but you know, that's the way it is. I can't avoid it. If you know, the government throws that sword of Damocles over your head. It's like, if you don't sign up for Medicare by a certain point in time, then you pay a penalty for the rest of your life when you do.
Right.
You know, in the premium. So it's like, well, you better do it now. I don't know what happened with my mother, because apparently my father missed the deadline, and for the rest of her life, you know, she paid a penalty on her Medicare premium, and it adds up over time, especially considering she lived to 97. You know,
That's right.
That's right. that definitely had, that there were some bucks in there. You know, when I calculated what that would have been. So anyway, so that was that for the Medicare tangent. But overall, you know, the union thing here, this is going to be really interesting, you know, and I just cannot get over how much, you know, the big three automakers have fallen over themselves to go and commit themselves to EVs, de-emphasize, you know, gas, you know, powered vehicles, and they're losing their shirts on the EVs, right? They can't make money on the EVs, and yet they're committing themselves to this process. And, you know, plus the fact that they're going to require fewer workers which is, I don't know that Sean Fain has really thought about all of that while he pushes higher wages, and the whole thing is going to be a disaster for them. Musk has shown how to take advantage of government subsidies, how to be pretty lean on his production and things like that, and he cuts prices at the drop of a hat. He goes up and down. He looks at the competitive landscape and he does things. The big automakers don't have that flexibility.
Right.
To do the same thing that they do. So there's some advantages there, and you think they would learn something from it, but they just never do. Other thing too here is this battle going on in Congress over a potential shutdown and everything. Lots of talk about McCarthy. Does McCarthy hold on to his post as Speaker? Does one really affect the other? I mean, how much is this Republican caucus? I mean, are they looking to really force a shutdown? Do they really want to get rid of McCarthy over this? What's your take on all of this?
Well, I think the thing is he would like to pass a continuing resolution legislation to keep the government funded for a little while longer until they can come to an agreement on where to go from here. They'd agreed when they raised the debt ceiling to some top line figures, right? So there's a blueprint for what to do, and there was people who didn't like that deal and are now trying to improve the deal. And there's some people, they're claiming, he's not met all these conditions that he's met. They want to. There's a congressman or two who's interested in firing him as Speaker, which they have the right to do under the deal that they made to make him Speaker. There's not a discharge position. What is it? Vacate the chair. Motion to vacate the chair. So you may see that in coming days. I don't think they have the votes. I think at this point, the rank and file of the Republican Party is going to say, we're not really in the middle of the Matt Gaetz versus Kevin McCarthy fight. And, what would be terrible for all of us politically is to be, begin a shutdown. And if you're going to begin a shutdown, right, for Republicans to be successful in a shutdown, which they almost never are, right, you have to have a clearly stated goal. If you'll meet these three conditions or whatever, we'll reopen the government, and the country backs those three conditions, right? Or two conditions, or even one condition, right? But could you name what are our lines in the sand here, right? We've already agreed this, to what 1% was 1%, right? Over.
Yeah.
So we've agreed to that, and that's we would all love to see it cut by 25%. But in real Washington speak, right, 1% cut is pretty good. I mean, 1% increase, that's holding the line. That's what passes for holding the line when you only control one house of Congress, and you have to make a deal on this, right? So I think that they need to figure out a way to get under 1%. And if that's a CO to continuing resolution, I guess, till the end of the year. And use that time to pass appropriations bills. That would, to me, be the wisest course. Can he get to that? Can he get his people in line to do this? I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. The repeated Republican failures, I mean, in terms of how it works for them with shutdowns, not good. So,
you have Biden on the ropes.
Yeah.
And these strikes, right? The effect of these strikes hurts him. It's like he's lost control, and it's just another nail in the coffin of he's too old to do this, and we should find someone younger and things that help Trump, right? But if you get in there and you get in a shutdown fight, right, then they say, oh, you guys don't know how to govern, your caucus is falling apart, your guys unorganized, they're already put in there. Nancy Pelosi didn't have these problems. Well, Nancy Pelosi, she had the majority, she had her people in line too. So, they're all for the same things. I don't think she was a great statesman, but I believe that, the poobahs don't run the Republican Party, right? The poobahs run the Democrat Party. That's how you got Biden. That's how you got Hillary Clinton. That's how you got Obama, right? The poobahs, the super delegates, the people in the back room chose all three of them, independent of what the voters thought. In 2016, Hillary lost 22 of the last 25 primaries and was still the nominee, right? That's because they didn't really care about the primary process. That was not determinative on how they were who they were going to make their candidate. So the same thing with Biden was in third place. They told the other people to drop out and make it him. So that's the way they're going to operate. Whereas we, our thing is freedom. So if you come here, you're free to speak your piece and be for what you want. But strategically, if we want to win this strategically, continuing resolution now, pass budget bills that are responsible. You can't say, oh, we're going to have a 90% cut, right? You can't be dumb about it, but are responsible and call for cuts, for real cuts.
Yeah, here's the comment.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, this is the same kind of point that I was going to make. It's just that here we are in mid, to late September with an election coming up, in November of 2024. What the Republicans don't need are these things happening where the government shuts down, which inevitably, the finger pointing will go back to the Republicans because it always does almost in every case. Also, any fight over the speakership, once again, you don't want that. You don't need any problems with you can't control and govern and things like that. They need positive news. And as you alluded to, is, things are not going well for the Democrats and for Biden. So why give them an opening of any kind to go in a different direction? The UAW thing. I mean, Biden's supposed to be, Mr. Big Labor friend, but he's not helping them in this situation, and they're not sure they really want much of his help. But Big Labor's not helping him with this strike at this point in time because he's out there trying to preach Bidenomics and how great things are. This is going to have a deleterious effect on the economy the longer they do. And if UAW expands the strike, it's going to get worse because, it's not just as things slow down in the auto industry at the plant, it goes to all the suppliers, all downline, right? It's kind of like, you mentioned the writer's strike. It's not just the writers and all this stuff that goes on there, but things don't go well. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of other people are out of work downline that supply Hollywood with food and set stuff and all the kind of stuff. When things are at a complete halt, they've got no business. There's nobody going into their diners. There's nobody catering food to the sets. So there's this whole all these other industries that are getting crushed by all of these things. Why? If Biden's such a big friend of labor, why hasn't he inserted himself into the Hollywood writer? I got to go solve this, right? But Hollywood left. They're supposed to be his friends, or he's supposed to be their friend there, but they're not doing that. I mean, so all of these things that are going on here, Bidenomics is failing. Biden is failing.
Right. Yeah. And you see that, go back to what we were talking about way earlier. Okay. You're talking about these commissions, the Global Warming Commission. Okay. So the rake and file, there's a poll out this week saying that Trump was up to about 17 or 18% with black voters. Okay. Now, how does that happen? Because, when they look at Biden and what are your priorities, it's issues that don't really matter to them. It's terrible job on the economy, but we're all over global warming and, reforming the intelligence community by inviting in the terrible people who messed it up to start with, right? But I mean, those are not bread and butter kitchen table issues, right? Neither one of them. About 1 or 2% of the people vote on the environment. It's alarmingly low. And I'm someone who's spent a lot of my career working on environmental issues. It's kind of frustrating because sometimes, like, we can put a big haymaker on it, but like you say, you tell your friends, man, we socked it to the global warming people today, and they're like, who cares, right? That's not news. That doesn't matter to me. So, he is what energy he is expending in directions that aren't going to get him a lot of votes.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of they're throwing a lot of stuff up there, hoping something kind of resonates and sticks. But you've got to get to those kitchen table bread and butter issues, because that's what people are going to be feeling. I mean, inflation's still a factor. October 1. Comes the student loan repayments. That is going to pinch a lot of people who've been getting a free ride for about 3+ years. And they're now having to deal with the hundreds of dollars in extra expenditure which is only fair. I mean,
Right.
they owe this money, they should be paying it back, but it is going to take a chunk out of the economy. Nobody really knows exactly how much, but it's going to be harder to preach all the Bidenomics if people start, they say, oh, well, there's $200 or $300 a month that I can't go out and spend on meals, or I got to cut back on my groceries, or I got to do some other things where the economy has been extremely resilient on. We will get a very good reading in a couple of months once this kind of starts filtering through to see exactly where are we going with all of this, and all that. And plus, we still have high interest rates that have, that choke the housing industry.
Yeah,
So
it's twice as much to buy a house now.
Yeah, yeah,
twice as much.
So it's just crazy. Anyway, all right. So we've reached the point where we need to wrap this up. Brian, finish it off.
Okay. One of the things that we did not get to, and I was looking to see it on your list. Okay, there's a couple of things I wanted to cover. One is, we need to take more advantage on the right of saying, the Democrats care more about abortion than they do military readiness, right? Because otherwise they would tell Joe to quit flying people around the country to get abortions, right? Flying military people around. Tuberville ain't going to budge. He doesn't have to budge. No one in the Republican caucus can come and say, publicly say, hey, Tommy, you need to stop doing this, right? Because then they are on the side of pro-abortion, right? There's no way of explaining against it. I guess you're going to see a story the next day or so saying that the Lauren Boebert thing was a setup. Okay. Yeah, they probably found a Democrat to ask you out and take you to this thing and get handsy with you and, filmed it or whatever. But, you did a bunch of wrong stuff there, lady. You vaped in a theater. People asked you to stop. You were a jerk about it. You had your hands all over this guy. The film didn't, unless you're going to tell me that they spliced the film and, created these alternate realities, then, all this is, you had an opportunity to do the right thing and you did not. So, I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that the Democrat or Republican Party can find a candidate in that district who is more suitable, ready for this. You want to live like that. That's fine, but you don't really belong in Congress if you're that, wackadoodle. Which the same goes for John Fetterman. He has somehow convinced Schumer to say, you should be able to wear, shorts and a hoodie and flip-flops onto the Senate floor. Why? So one of the leftists actually raised this. Is like, okay, if you want to relax the Senate dress rules some, okay, whatever. Work from home and all this stuff has kind of changed how Americans dress for work. Even the people who go into the office, it's more casual now. But why are we this big dramatic a change for this particular senator, right? Why did we do this now? Which I think is a good thing. What else is on here that I wanted to get down?
We got to wrap this up because we're now pressing against the max.
And Wexton, she's seriously ill, and so you'll get another chance for Hung Cow in Virginia 10.
All right, that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us again. Remember, as always, be safe and be well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And barring any unforeseen circumstances, we will be back again next week with some more good programming here. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Come on, button. Hit.